Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to talk about the Vult modules for VCV rack, and to be more precise, what modules I use, how I use them, why I use them, etc. Now, like a month ago, I've made a tutorial discussing what modules I consider be a must-have when starting with VCV rack, and some of these modules were from the Vult collection, but unfortunately I couldn't go deep with these modules, and so this is what we're going to do exactly in today's tutorial. Now, as usual, before we dive into the tutorial, if you want to help me make more psychedelic tutorials, more psychedelic music, you can consider becoming one of my patrons or just buy my presets on Gumroad, link down in the description. And as the usual, these VCV projects and samples from today's tutorial are going to be sent to my patrons. Now, with that said, let's start our tutorial. So the Vult modules were developed by Dr. Leonardo Lacuna Ruiz. I hope I've pronounced it well. These modules are virtual analog, and they come in two packages, a free one and a paid one. The paid one has more modules, and some of the free modules has more functionalities when they get paid. But we're going to focus on the free modules, and as the usual, all of my VCV tutorials are based on free modules. I've never used a paid module in any of my tutorials anyways. So yeah, we're going to focus on the free package and what modules I use from the free package. So here we have a really simple VCV layout. Here's the MIDI to CV module, an ADSR which is controlling the mixer, which is playing a VCA part in here. And everything is routed to Ableton Live via the VCV Bridge plugin, which will send MIDI and receives audio from VCV. We have a really simple project in here, nothing too special, kick bass and some 909. So yeah, anyways, with that said, let's see the first modules. So the first module I want to talk about is the Basal module, which is, if I'm not mistaken, just a sine core oscillator, because if we don't play with the modulation here, we have a sine wave. That sounds pretty warm. And we have two modulation in here. So the first one will phase modulate the oscillator to get more overtones. So if I'll play with it, we'll get this. And the second mod in here will add more harmonics. So we'll get this. So yeah, that was the first module I wanted to show you. By the way, I will show you all, and I will talk about all the modules I use, and then I will start with the sound examples. So yeah, with that said, the second module I've wanted to show you is Caudal. Now, Caudal is a really special module because it's a chaos source, basically for random modulation. It's based on a multi-segment pendulum. If you want to really go in details on how it works, Leonardo made a great video explaining how his modules work. You can find it right in here. And basically think of it this way. You have three types of let's say random sources inside. We have the pendula, planets, and a fish tank. You can control the speed with this knob in here, and the energy with this knob in here, and you get basically 12 outputs of random modulation. So each output, so basically it's like you have 4 different sources of randomness, and every source will send 3 different sources. So like, just to make it simple, you can think of it as 12 sources of modulation inside one module. And if we look at the scope in here, if we set it to XY, X equal Y, we can see the modulation in here. So this is the X-axis and this is the Y-axis. Check these random modulation going. And we can look at it in the classic scope. Like this. Check this randomness. And when I'll change the mode, we'll get other type of randomness going on. So yeah, pretty interesting module for chaotic modulations. And you know, it's Psytrance, so we really love randomness, and this is just a huge source of randomness. Again, I'll show you what it can do, what it's capable of doing with the sound examples. Next, I want to show you is the Debriatus. It's basically 4 types of distortions in series that will distort the sound. And you might tell me, yeah, but it's just a distortion. But man, you'll see what it can do with the sound examples. It's just awesome, the things it can do. It can turn like a really simple audio into a screaming lead. I'll show you in a few. Now, the next module I want to show you is Flux. Now, Flux is a voltage processor, and it's designed to work with Caudal. So what it'll do is that it'll basically, each lane will do the same thing. So I'll just talk about one lane in here. So it'll, when you send a signal into it, it can either sample and hold it, basically turning whatever signal into some sort of sample and hold. It can compare it to give some binary modulation. And we can control everything with this range knob in here. And we can also offset the voltage, basically giving only positive or only negative values. And by the way, we can bypass the sample and hold and the comparator stage. And like this, the signal will go directly to the range and offset. And then it'll go to this slew limiter / envelope follower that can work in a linear or exponential way, or just as an envelope follower. So if I'll send this signal from Caudal into it, so now we'll get nothing. But if I'll give it a clock source, and for the clock source I'll just take an LFO from VCV to give me a clock with a square wave. So check this out. Now it's sampling and holding the signal from Caudal according to the LFO rate that we have in here. So if I'll make it faster, it'll go faster. If I'll make it slower, it'll sample and hold slower. So anyways, this is the sample and hold module. We can set it to comparator, and this, as I said, will give us a binary source of modulation. And we can add smoothness to it using the rate in here, using the slew limiter. Let me set it to sample and hold again and give it more rate to the LFO, so we can see clearly what it is doing. So this is linear way, this is exponential, and this is when it's set to envelope follower. So when it's on envelope follower, it'll add some sort of an envelope decay to the end of the, when it's moving from one value to another, if that makes sense. Anyways, a lot of possibilities can come out of this voltage processor. And again, I'll show you in the sound examples the amazing capabilities it can do. Anyways, back to the Vult modules. So here we have Julste, I think it's pronounced like this. This is a low pass gate. Really cool module to make percussive sounds. I don't use it a lot, but I've wanted to mention it, so you can go and try it out for yourself. Then we have the Rescomb, which is basically a resonant comb filter. You know how much I love comb filters, and this one it has really, really nice character to it. It's really different from the comb filters I know from like serum or pigments. Yeah, I use it a lot. Then we have Stable that I use a lot. It's just a state variable filter, really nice sounding. It's capable of self-resonating, and actually when you use the sem in here, or the semblance output in here, we can actually morph between low pass, band pass, and high pass, and this is something really cool to have in a filter. Then we have tangents, which is a Steiner-Parker style filter. Basically we have low pass, band pass, high pass. By the way, both filters are 12 dB per octave filters, 2 pulse filters, but both of them are unique in their own way, and the Steiner-Parker filter can scream in a really nice way. You'll see in the sound examples. And then we have Vessek. Vessek is a complex oscillator, meaning that inside we have two oscillators modulating each other, and to be precise, it's oscillator A modulating oscillator B, either with FM or AM or sync between them, or the three of them, and then everything will go through a fold and a shaper section, and then to the master output. The stuff that you can get out of this oscillator is just huge. I won't say anything right now. I'll leave it to the sound examples section, because this oscillator is just wow, just amazing. And yeah, the last module I've wanted to talk about that I really use from the Vult modules is the Wolv module. It is actually a wave shaper module. It exists in hardware option, and it actually just came out for VCV. So as I said, it's a wave shaper module that can get some really nice results, just what we have with Debriatus. And yeah, that's all for the modules I use from Vult in VCV. Now let's go and start making some sounds with these modules. So I wanted to start with Basal. So as I said, Basal, we have a sine wave output in here, but check this out. I'll zoom in like so. I'll take the output of Basal and it'll go to Debriatus like so, and the output of Debriatus will go to the mixer. I'll start playing with the fold, crush, distort, and saturate, and check the results that we'll get out of all of these. Already getting some nasty results. Let's add some crush. And let's distort the signal a little bit. And to finish everything, let's saturate it. You can play with the fold, crush, distort to get different results. Now, let's take Stabile, like so, and I'll take the output of the Debriatus module to the input of Stabile, and I'll take the bandpass output to the mixer. Pretty straightforward bandpass filter. Let's give it some resonance. Nice. Now, this is Psytrance. Let's send a random ARP. So for that, I already have autoplay loaded in here with 1 16th and a little bit of 1 1/8 values, random length processing, basically random gate. And yeah, let's send an ARP. Pretty nice, right? Let's add some delay and some kick and bass and check this out. Isn't this just pretty awesome? Like, we got some sort of an FM lead just by putting a sine wave into Debriatus and this chain of distortion, and we just got like, yeah, some sort of an FM lead, but it has nothing to do with FM. And for sure, let's turn off autoplay. We can add some mod 1 in Basal and mod 2 and get even weirder results. Take the low pass output like so. This filter is just so good. Now let's set it to bandpass again and see what we can do with Caudal and Flux, because this is where things will get pretty interesting. Now, okay, let's just give me some space like so. So in Caudal we have this hit input in here. Basically we can send a gate signal to it, so I'll route the gate to hit, so like so every time it receives a gate it'll fire up a new random value, so just like a clocking sample and hold source to a gate or a clock source. And I'll take the XA output in here, I'll set it to the N of the first Flux channel in here. I'll take down the rate, like so. I'll set it to linear, and the output will go to the state variable filter to stable in here. And what I'll do is I want Flux to sample and hold according to our gate or to our clock. So again, I'll send a gate signal from MIDI to CV, you know, just like with Caudal, to the clock input in here. Now, when I'll hit play, I'll turn on autoplay again, and when I'll hit play, we should get a classic sample and hold modulation. Just like so. Okay, no kick and bass. Solo the VCV. Now we can play with the range and offset the signal the way we like. And let's give it just a little bit of slow limiting, basically to make it smoother. Isn't this just crazy? We got the random chaos modulating source going through a sample and hold module, the module making it a sample and hold, and then we are applying a slew limiter over it and getting some crazy results. I really love that. Now with some kick and bass. I really love what we can do with it. And by the way, I'm sorry for the glitches. As you know, there's the VCV bridge plugin isn't supported anymore, so we're always having these kind of glitches. It's too bad, but yeah, I think they're going to solve the problem with VCV Rack version 2. We will have a paid bridge plugin. Anyways, so yeah, this is the first sound example that I've wanted to show you. Now, we can make these results even crazier using the Rescomb in here. So I'll take the output of the wave destructor in here from Debriatus to the input of our Rescomb, and the output will go to our state variable filter in here. Now I want the comp filter to pitch follow what I'm doing. So the volt per octave input in here, I'll use it and I'll link it to the volt per octave output from the MIDI to CV module. And now when I'll fire some notes, check this out. I'll start playing with the tuning and the comp, filtering in here, and with the feedback. First of all, with the comp, I'll use the low pass filter so you'll hear what's going on, and I'll turn off the modulation. For sure, I can take off the Vult per octave in here from the MIDI, and I can route it to Caudal, and we'll get crazier results. Now let's set the output of the filter to bandpass, and let's do exactly the same thing. I'll close it a little bit, some modulation from Flux, and we have this. Nasty results. Let's try with the high pass filter. We can go even crazier and set it to the semblance output in here and send a random modulation source from Caudal to the semblance input in here, and let's just crank the modulation like so all the way up, and check this out. Crazy, crazy, crazy results. Now let's try with the kick and bass. Isn't this just nasty and juicy? I really love that. Now, yeah, this was the first sound example that I've wanted to show you. Now, for the second sound example, I want to do something a little bit different. So what I'll do, it's take all of these links. Let's just unlink everything. I just want a gate to the ADSR, to the envelope. Now, I'll take Vessek. I'll take the output directly to the mixer in here, so we can hear what it is doing. The Vult per octave input to the Vult per octave output of our MIDI to CV module. Now we have first oscillator. Let's take down the delay. Pulse output, saw, and a triangle. Now, all of these, both oscillators have pulse, saw, and triangle. And by the way, I forgot to tell about something, which is the modulation router in here, which is pretty interesting. So, for example, you can modulate whatever you like with this modulation router in here. All we have to do is click on the button here, turn the knob you want it to modulate, and now the first input will modulate the AM, and we can do this for FM, we can do this for everything in this oscillator, and this is huge because it just opens up a lot of possibilities. So anyways, what I want to show you with this oscillator is the FM it can do. So as I said, oscillator A is modulating FM, is modulating oscillator B. Now I'll set the mix to only oscillator B. Yeah, pulse, boring, nothing too special. Now let's add some FM. Yeah, we're starting getting these marble kind of sounds. Now let's add some AM. AM kind of smoothen up the sound. And let's sync everything. let's try with the saw. Oh, for the second oscillator. I'll leave it on pulse because it sounds really, really, really nasty. Now, what I want to do, I want to modulate the octave knob in here. So I'll set this first input to modulate the octave of first oscillator. And we're going to modulate this with Caudal, which will go to, yeah, I'll leave it to channel A in here. I'll take down the slew limiter in here. I'll set the offset to its place, the range to its place, you know, 0, if that makes sense. And I'll take the output to modulate the octave in here, and I'll clock Flux with the gate as the usual, and I'll clock Caudal with the gate again. So now we have this. And I'll give it some range because I think it's not going exactly to the full range in here. Pretty nice. Now let's take the output and make it go to tangents, the Steiner-Parker filter. So I'll set the input to bandpass in here and the output to our mixer. Let's give it some resonance. Pretty nice. And now let's send a random ARP with autoplay. We get this. Okay, without the kick and bass for now. If you think the modulation is too much on the octave, let's take it down. But the sound kind of get boring, so I'll just crank it up again, the modulation, and maybe take down the range a little bit, offset it a little bit to be more in positive values. And let's modulate the filter with another random modulator from Caudal going to Flux, which is being clocked by the gate. And by the way, with Flux, we can do exactly the same kind of modulation that we have in Vessek. We can use it in Flux. We have the same modulation matrix. I forgot to mention that. Anyways, let's modulate the filter a little bit with some slew limiting like so. Pretty nice results. Now let's add some kick and bass and some delay. Pretty nice. Let's try with Stabile though. So bandpass output, input like so, same modulation with some resonance. Pretty nasty results. Now we can take all of this and make it go to Wolv, the wave shaper. So I'll just input the signal like so, take it out, and let's just play with the parameters a little bit. Actually, I'm going to leave it without Wolv, just like so. Pretty nasty results. Now, the last sound example I want to show you, I've already prepared the project, so I'm going to load it. And it's actually a pad sound, or like an atmosphere. And as the usual, I will walk you through everything that I've done in that atmosphere. So here we have the patch. I'll walk you through everything. So first of all, let's turn off autoplay and let's hear it a little bit. So we'll get this. Before we listen to it, I need to turn on the filter, the reverb, black hole. So what's going on in here? We have two layers of sound playing with each other. The first layer is the first lane in here. The second layer is the second lane in here. So I'll mute the second layer and let's hear the first layer. Pretty simple. We have the Basal oscillator being modulated, or its mod 1 and mod 2 are being modulated with Caudal, as you can see, with the chords in here. And it's tracking pitch. And its output is going to Stabile, state variable filter. And its low pass output is actually going directly to the mixer in here. Now I'm using a mixer from Bog Audio because with this mixer I can pan and I can modulate the panning and I can control the level, actually use it as a VCA. I'll show you the pan control, with the second sound anyways. Now the filter is being modulated with the first envelope generator in here. Now, which has long attack, full decay, and like 2/3 sustain, and its sustain is being modulated with Caudal again. Now, this will give us some movement with the sound, because the sustain will basically control the overall level of how the filter is opened or closed. Now, and we have actually some modulation on the resonance. Now the modulation on the resonance is being modulated by the first envelope generator in here, which is getting mixed by a random signal from Caudal to using the knobs module from Vult. The knobs module from Vult, basically you can mix for modulation sources, you can attenuate them, you can invert them, you can do all kind of crazy things with them. Really, really helpful module, but I use it rarely, so that's why it wasn't in the list with which I've started this tutorial. So yeah, anyways, mixing the ADSR and the random modulation from Caudal to modulate the resonance, so it gets movement with the sound. And yeah, again we get this. Some deep dark, texture, and we add on top of it this crazy top layer. It sounds like this. Now, what's going on in here? So we have Vessek, we have some FM. So the first oscillator is on saw, the second is on triangle. The second oscillator octave is on full. We have some FM going on, AM to the max, and I'm modulating with this Caudal, which is on a faster rate than the first Caudal in here. I'm modulating the octave of the first oscillator, and I'm modulating the FM amount too with A and B modulation sources. And since I'm modulating the pitch, I wanted to make some sort of a squelchy kind of feeling to the sound. So we have tangent in here, standard Parker filter, on bandpass mode, but the cutoff is being modulated with the same modulator that is modulating the octave of the first oscillator, which is doing, the FM. It's actually closing it or modulating it with the opposite direction. So we'll get some sort of this squelchy feeling, if that makes sense. And, as the usual, a lot of resonance and some drive. And the output is going to the channel 2, which I'm modulating its level with Flux in here, which is taking its modulation from the first Caudal module in here, and it's being clocked by the MIDI gate. Flux 2 is taking another random modulation from Caudal in here, and it's modulating the panning of the second channel, so the sound will go, will move from left to right. Yeah, and by the way, both channels are set to off. So basically, we're bypassing the sample and hold or the comparator module, and it's all directly to the range and the offset and the slew limiting. So this will give us a lot of movement to the sound. So the sound is moving, and then I'll just unmute everything, and we have this again. And yeah, with this is the end of this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've learned something new, and if so, you can leave a comment, subscribe, maybe leave a thumbs up, and yeah, have a great one.